All right, hi. It's Miss Amanda and Sadie Kate back for some nighttime reading. And remember, we just finished the Magic Treehouse book number 1, Dinosaurs Before Dark. So we finished that book last night. And so tonight we are going to start the second book in the Magic Treehouse series. And it's called The Night at Dawn by Mary Pope Osborne. And dawn means like when the sun is coming up. So Dinosaurs Before Dark was talking about when the sun was going down, and now we're talking about dawn when the sun is coming up, the night at dawn. So let's get started. We'll read the first 3 chapters in this second book in our Magic Treehouse series. In the first chapter, this is chapter 1, The Dark Woods. Jack couldn't sleep. He put his glasses on. He looked at the clock. 5:30. Too early to get up. Yesterday, so many strange things had happened, and now he was trying to figure them out. He turned on the light. He picked up his notebook. He looked at the list he'd made before going to bed. Found treehouse in woods. Found lots of books in the treehouse. Pointed to pteranodon picture and book. Made a wish. Went to the time of dinosaurs. Pointed to a picture of Frog Creek woods. Made a wish. And came home to Frog Creek. Jack pushed his glasses into place. Who was going to believe any of this? Not his mom, or his dad, or his 3rd grade teacher's Miss Watkins. Only his 7-year-old sister Annie, and she'd gone with him to the time of the dinosaurs. Can't you sleep? It was Annie standing in his doorway. Nope, said Jack. Me neither, said Annie. What are you doing? She walked over to Jack and looked at his notebook, and she read the list. Aren't you going to write about the gold medallion? She asked. I'm sorry. Aren't you going to write about the gold medal? She asked. You mean the gold medallion? Said Jack. He picked up his pencil and wrote, Found this in dinosaur time, and then he drew a picture of the gold medallion. Aren't you going to put the letter M on the medal? Said Annie. Medallion, said Jack, not a medal. And he added an M on his medallion that he drew. So,
how do they know it's a medallion?
I don't know. That's a good question. Aren't you going to write about the magic person? Said Annie. We don't know for sure if there is a magic person, said Jack. Well, someone built a treehouse in the woods, and someone put the books in it, and someone lost a gold medal in dinosaur time. Medallion, said Jack for the 3rd time, and I'm just writing the facts. The stuff we know for sure. Let's go back to the treehouse right now, said Annie, and find out if the magic person is a fact. Are you nuts? Said Jack. The sun's not even up yet. Come on, said Annie. Maybe we can catch them sleeping.
They're sneaking out?
Yep.
Like, at their parents knowing?
They're going to sneak out.
No!
I don't think we should.
You would not let me do that.
I don't think we should, said Jack. He was worried. What if the magic person is mean? Or what if he or she didn't want kids to know about the treehouse? Well, I'm going, said Annie. Jack looked out his window at the dark gray sky. It was almost dawn. He sighed. Okay, let's get dressed. I'll meet you at the back door, but be quiet. Yay, Annie whispered, and she tiptoed away as quietly as a mouse. Jack put on jeans, a warm sweatshirt, and sneakers. He tossed his notebook and pencil in his backpack. He crept downstairs. Annie was waiting by the back door. She shined a flashlight in Jack's face. Ta-da! A magic wand, she said. Shh! Don't wake up Mom and Dad, whispered Jack, and turn that flashlight off. We don't want anyone to see us. Annie nodded and turned it off. Then she clipped it on her belt. They slipped out the door into the cool early morning air. Crickets were chirping. The dog next door barked. Quiet, Henry, whispered Annie. Henry stopped barking. Animals always seem to do what Annie says. Let's run, said Jack, and they dashed across the dark, wet lawn and didn't stop until they reached the woods. We need the flashlight now, said Jack. Annie took it off her belt and switched it on. Step by step, she and Jack walked between the trees. Jack held his breath. The dark woods were scary. Gotcha, said Annie, shining the flashlight in Jack's face. Jack jumped back and then frowned. Cut it out, he said. I scared you, said Annie. Jack glared at her. Stop pretending, he whispered. This is serious. Okay. Annie shined her flashlight over the tops of the trees. "Now what are you doing?" said Jack. "Looking for the treehouse." The light stopped moving. There it was, the mysterious treehouse, at the top of the tallest tree in the woods. Annie shined her light at the treehouse and then down at the tall ladder, all the way to the ground. "I'm going up," she said, and she gripped the flashlight and began to climb. "Wait," Jack called. What if someone was in the treehouse? "Annie, come back!" But she was gone. The light disappeared, and Jack was alone in the dark. There she is, climbing up that tall treehouse. And we're at chapter 2, leaving again. "No one's here," Annie shouted down. Jack thought about going home. Then he thought about all the books in the treehouse, so he started up the ladder. When he was nearly to the treehouse, he saw light in the distant sky. Dawn was starting to break. He crawled through a hole in the floor and took off his backpack. It was dark inside the treehouse. Annie was shining her flashlight on the books scattered about. "They're still here," she said. She stopped the light on a dinosaur book. It was the book that had taken them to the time of the dinosaurs. "Remember the Tyrannosaurus Rex?" asked Annie. Jack shuddered. Of course he remembered. How could anyone forget seeing a real live Tyrannosaurus Rex? The light fell on a book about Pennsylvania. A red silk bookmark stuck out of it. "Remember the picture of Frog Creek?" said Annie. "Of course," said Jack. "That was the picture that had brought them home." There's my favorite," said Annie. The light was shining on a book about knights and castles. There was a blue leather bookmark in it. Annie turned to the page with the bookmark. There was a picture of a knight on a black horse, and he was riding toward a castle. "Annie, close that book," said Jack. "I know what you're thinking." Annie pointed to the knight. "Don't, Annie." "I wish we could see this guy for real," Annie said. "No, we don't," shouted Jack. They heard a strange sound. "Neigh!" It sounded like a horse neighing. They both went to the window. Annie shined the flashlight down on the ground. "Oh no," whispered Jack. "A knight," said Annie. "A knight in shining armor, riding a black horse through Frog Creek woods." Then the wind began to moan, and the leaves began to tremble. It was happening again. "We're leaving," cried Annie. "Get down." The wind moaned louder, the leaves shook harder, and the treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Jack squeezed his eyes shut. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Jack opened his eyes. He shivered. The air was damp and cool. The sound of a horse's whinny came again from below. "Nay!" "I think we're here," whispered Annie. She was still holding the castle book. Jack peered out the window. A huge castle loomed out of the fog. He looked around. The treehouse was in a different oak tree, and down below the knight on the black horse was riding by. "We can't stay here," said Jack. "We have to go home and make a plan first." He picked up the book about Pennsylvania. He opened it to the page with the red silk bookmark. He pointed to the photograph of the Frog Creek woods. "I wish—" "No," said Annie, and she yanked the book away from him. "Let's stay. I want to visit the castle." "You're nuts. We have to examine the situation," said Jack, "from home." "Let's just examine it here," said Annie. "Come on." He held out his hand. "Give it back." Annie gave Jack the book. "Okay. Here's the castle." "Okay, you can go home, but I'm staying," she said, and she clipped the flashlight to her belt. "Wait," said Jack. "I'm going to take a peek, just a tiny peek," she said, and she scooted down the ladder. Jack groaned. Okay, she had won. He couldn't leave without her. Besides, he sort of wanted to take a peek himself. He put down the book about Pennsylvania. He dropped the castle book into his pack, and he stepped out onto the ladder and headed down into the cool, misty air. Chapter 3. Across the Bridge. Annie was under the tree, looking across the foggy ground. "The knight's riding towards that bridge, I think," said Annie. "The bridge goes up to the castle." "Wait, I'll look it up," said Jack. "Give me that flashlight." He took the flashlight from her and pulled the castle book out of his pack. He opened it to the page with the leather bookmark. He read the words under the picture of the knight. "This is a knight arriving for a castle feast." Knights wore armor when they traveled long and dangerous distances. The armor was very heavy. A helmet alone could weigh up to 40 pounds. Wow! Jack had weighed 40 pounds when he was 5 years old. So it'd be like riding a horse with a 5-year-old on your head. Jack pulled out his notebook. He wanted to take notes, as he'd done on their dinosaur trip. So he wrote, "Heavy head. What else?" He turned the pages of the castle book, and he found a picture that showed the whole castle and the buildings around it. "The knight's crossing the bridge," said Annie. "He's going through the gate. He's gone." Jack studied the bridge in the picture, and he read, "A drawbridge crossed the moat. The moat was filled with water to help protect the castle from enemies. Some people believed crocodiles were kept in the moat." Jack wrote in his notebook, "Crocodiles in the moat, ? "Look," said Annie, peering through a mist, "a windmill right over there." "Yeah, there's a windmill in here too," said Jack, pointing at the picture. "Look at the real one, Jack," said Annie. "Not the one in the book." A piercing shriek split the air. "Yikes," said Annie. "It sounded like it came from that little house over there," and she pointed through the fog. "There's a little house here," said Jack, studying the picture, and he turned the page and read, "The hawk house was in the inner ward of the castle. Hawks were trained to hunt other birds and small animals." Jack wrote in his notebook, "Hawks in the hawk house." And there's the knight going over the drawbridge. Sorry, my pages are stuck together. There we go. We must...
Together.
I don't know.
We're almost done with the book.
"We must be in the inner ward," said Jack. Listen, whispered Annie. "You hear that? Drums. Horns. They're coming from the castle. Let's go and see." "Wait," said Jack. He turned more pages of the book. "I want to see what's really going on, Jack. Not what's in the book," said Annie. "But look at this," said Jack. And he pointed to a picture of a big party. Men were standing by the door playing drums and horns, and he read, "Fanfares were played to announce different dishes in a feast. Feasts were held in the great hall." "You can look at that book. I'm going to the real feast," said Annie. "Wait," said Jack, studying the picture. It showed boys his age carrying trays of food, whole pigs, pies, peacocks with their feathers. "Peacocks?" Jack wrote, "They eat peacocks? ? He held up the book to show Annie. "Look, I think they eat..." But where was she? Gone. Again. Jack looked through the fog. He heard the real drums and the real horns. He saw the real hawk house and the real windmill and the real moat. And then he saw Annie dashing across the real drawbridge. And she vanished through the gate leading into the castle. All right, that is the end of chapter 3. And we will pick up with chapter 4 tomorrow night. Hope y'all enjoyed. Good night.